Hey everyone, I just wanted to go over the ABC and picnic analysis to make sure that everyone is clear on what it should look like and how it can help you. So let's take a look. Here is the basic format. We have the antecedent, behavior, and consequence, that's the ABC portion, and then the picnic portion over here. So I went ahead and selected eating processed foods as the behavior that I'm going to focus on for this analysis. There's a lot of antecedents that can come before eating processed foods. If you think about it, anytime that we're about to eat something, we're either hungry, we're bored, maybe we just walked into the kitchen, maybe we saw someone else eating, we might be feeling tired, we might have just gotten home from work, and it could just be mealtime. And then we proceed to eat processed foods. So what are the consequences of eating processed foods? We want to take a look at all of the possible consequences, which this is just a small list, and I mean, you could go as in-depth as you need to, but essentially, this is some of the major things. It tastes good. That's definitely positive. It satisfies our hunger now? Sure. It makes you thirsty. A lot of processed foods do because they're really high in sodium, so that can be a negative thing. It can cause irregular bowel movements, an upset stomach, gain weight, you can feel tired, you might end up with high cholesterol, high blood pressure. You're hungry again quickly, and you could end up with a food addiction. Now that's a lot of negatives, but the positives, the taste good and the satisfying hunger, both of those are immediate. And those are both certain. Making you thirsty, that's a futuristic thing, and it may or may not happen. So we're not really sure if we're going to be extra thirsty from this. Irregular bowel movements, again, that's futuristic. It's really uncertain. Upset stomach, same thing. We may or may not have an upset stomach. Are we going to gain weight? Quite possibly. Do we know that for sure? No, because lots of people eat processed foods and really don't gain weight. Same thing with feeling tired. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. High cholesterol, future, uncertain. Hypertension, future, uncertain. Hungry again quickly, future, well, we know that's pretty certain. And you could end up with a food addiction to those processed foods. That is something that happens regularly. So as we can see, the negatives are kind of all futuristic, and they're all very uncertain except for being hungry again quickly. Processed foods don't satiate us because they don't give us the nutritional balance that we need in our diets. But they taste good and they satisfy our hunger now, which is why we keep going for them. So this picnic analysis can help us by looking at these positive immediate consequences and say, okay, that immediate consequence is what is sort of driving this behavior. The consequence is causing you to continue to eat processed foods again and again. So we'll come back to that, but let's take a look at the replacement behavior, eating more vegetables. Well, a lot of people don't like the taste of vegetables, so that's a negative. It takes a lot more time to prepare. You need to eat more to get full. It's definitely not as satisfying to our palates. It's healthier. That's definitely positive. Lower risk of heart disease. You can lose weight, feel less lethargic, and possibly live longer. But that is futuristic, and it's uncertain. We might feel less lethargic, but again, that's also an uncertainty. We're going to lose weight. That's positive. That's futuristic. And well, it is certain. If you eat vegetables and less processed foods, you will certainly lose weight. Lower risk of heart disease. That's future. That's a little bit uncertain because there's a lot of factors that go into being at risk for heart disease. You be a little bit healthier. That's futuristic. And you could go with certain or uncertain. I'm going to say eating more vegetables is certainly healthier for you. It's not as satisfying. That's pretty immediate, and that's certain. It is not as satisfying on our palate because the processed foods have been chemically altered over time to target our brain's pleasure center. So, of course, vegetables don't do that, but they do get you full if you eat enough of them, and if you eat a balanced diet and include enough of the proteins and complex carbohydrates that you need. But you have to eat more to get full. So it takes a lot longer. It takes a lot more effort to make a meal that will get you full, that's full of vegetables. So that's immediate and that is certain. Spend a lot more time preparing. Well, that's pretty certain. And if you don't like the taste of vegetables, That's immediate, and that's definitely certain. So we see that there's really not a whole lot of positive immediate consequences from eating vegetables if you don't like the taste. A lot of people do, but then sometimes the spending a lot of time preparing them can outweigh the flavor of the vegetables. But we see that these positive futuristic things, they're all great, but they're not happening right now. So what the person is normally doing is focusing on these positive immediate consequences. Tastes good and satisfies hunger. So now we sort of understand the motivation behind the bad behavior, and now we can try to create positive immediate consequences for eating vegetables. So we can take a look at the positive immediate consequences that are driving this bad behavior. I don't really see any positive immediate consequences from the behavior that I want, which is eating more vegetables. Now, the antecedents are kind of the same. We eat vegetables versus processed foods for all the same reasons. So we can consider changing some of the antecedents, but will that change the behavior? If I just avoid the kitchen, will that change my eating behavior? No, not really. We can try to tinker with the antecedents a little bit, but it's not going to result in long-term behavior change. We're just changing what comes before eating, but we're always going to eat. So something like feeling tired. How might we change that antecedent? Well, you could have a meal that's prepped and ready to go so that when you feel tired, it's just as easy to pop your healthy meal into the oven as it is to eat your processed foods. But that requires a lot more preparation at a different time, etc., etc. So we can tinker with the antecedents, but we're not really leading to long-term behavior change. Consequences are what drive behavior. This is what causes behaviors to happen. Positive immediate consequences are the ones that are most likely going to influence our behaviors. This is where we can take a look at the picnic analysis and try to identify some positive immediate consequences that we might be able to implement if we engage in the behaviors that we want. Let's think about things that might reinforce eating vegetables. Well, what works for you? Are you a person who likes to watch television after dinner? You might say you can't watch television until you've consumed, X number of servings of vegetables per day. Contingencies work really well for things that we don't like doing. Changing this is going to require a lot of reinforcement. It's going to require you to think about ways that you can positively reinforce immediately after eating vegetables. Whether it's, oh, I finished my vegetables, now I can go on a walk, or now I can watch TV, or now I can change into jammies. Whatever it is that you like doing, use that as a reinforcer for the behaviors that you wouldn't ordinarily engage in. So that's what the picnic analysis is doing. It's helping us look at the positive immediate consequences that are outweighing all of the other consequences. Because again, you see that there's a lot of positives in the good behavior and a lot of negatives in the bad behavior, but those positive immediate consequences are driving that behavior to happen over and over again. That's basically what your picnic analysis should look like, and that's what you should be getting out of it, is where can I insert positive immediate consequences for the behavior that I want, so that we can basically cause an extinction of the other behavior because we're replacing it. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to cover any questions that you might have.